Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Hi, welcome to part 2 of our Angels Take Manhattan episode. Be sure to listen to part 1 first if you haven't already. We have so much to discuss and say because it's our farewell to Amy and Rory, plus we just had such a good time talking. So enjoy part 2. Rory enters a room in the apartment building, but is found by Amy, River, and the Doctor before he gets too far inside. The happiness is short-lived when they find an elderly Rory laying in the bed. He dies holding Amy's hand. The Angels keep people in the apartment building and zap them back in time when they try to escape. They decide that if they can get Rory out of the building, it would create a paradox that would kill the Angels. They take turns watching Angels as Rory runs, but the Angels are still able to manipulate him to the roof. Amy and Rory see the Statue of Liberty next to the building.
Link.
When Rory comes in and Amy goes to the older Rory dying on the bed, he says a line, "Will somebody please tell me what's going on?" I was like, that's me. Because there's just like so much in this episode that I feel is fast and loose with the logic, but it's more focusing on the character stuff. So back to what we were saying in the beginning, I kind of wish they had time to focus on the character stuff and had maybe a simpler story or plot to tell us with the character story.
I mean, especially just because it was Amy and Rory's last. Like, if this were a mid-season episode, whatever. But it's like, this is so important.
I think they were really going for the drama with their last episode. I think they were going for the hurt, you know, they wanted to will show pain and scariness and be like, they wanted them to go out with a bang.
Yeah.
And they also wanted to show the characters at their best. So Amy will do anything to save Rory, and Rory will wait for Amy over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I think the way I feel, like what I've mentioned, is because when we did the God Complex, we thought that this was the logical conclusion to Amy and Rory's character arc. Yeah. They were strong enough to say, we can't travel with you like we have been. And then the Doctor gives them a happy ending as far as a house and a car. But then we come back and we keep coming back. So that's sort of how I feel about this scene, is because we've already had that closure, but then we're given something else that feels a little shoehorned.
Right. Well, it's like their story is that they're people who can't have that normal life. Like Brian says that to them at the end of, or like Brian says to the Doctor, I guess, at the end of Power of Three, you know, like, it's you. They want to travel with you.
Martha, it was only Martha. She was the only one strong enough to walk away, but now we have Graham and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Clara even says, like, at one point she tells 12, it's like, is this an addiction for you? And she like almost admits that it's an addiction for her as well, because she could have also had her happy ending and just kind of walked away or whatever.
Well, I think they kind of foreshadowed that or went into that already, because when the Doctor came back to visit them, they were about to get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed like they weren't able to function without the travels that they were like. It was almost like traveling with the Doctor was a catalyst for their relationship, and removing it from them entirely was the only way to get them to survive together, I guess. I don't know. Well,
and she had cold feet at the wedding. The night before the wedding, she took off with the dude.
Mm-hmm.
And she made out with him.
And she made out with him.
Yeah, those are two things we don't talk about: the divorce and the.
So Nate, I agree with what you're saying, but it feels like these episodes since the God Complex are contradicting themselves, because when I can't remember which episode it is specifically, but the doctor shows, or they hear, no, it's dinosaurs on a spaceship, where they hear the sound of the TARDIS materializing, and Amy and Rory are like, this is not a good time. I don't want to go with the doctor.
Oh, that's fair.
But then in Asylum of the Daleks, when they jump through the portal that transports them to the Asylum planet, Amy's like, I miss this. So it's like we're getting these things that tells us we're kind of done. We're how do I put this? We're getting signal or messages, pieces of dialogue that say, I miss this. I want this adventure, this extraordinary life. But then they're always trying to get an ordinary life. And so it's very mixed for me.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. But that's very true.
And maybe being stuck in New York City was the kind of difference that they needed.
I mean, the last episode, they were liking the normal life.
Oh my gosh, the last episode triggers me with this one next. Like, the power of 3 upsets me so much because his dad's like, go ahead, go with them, protect them, blah, blah, blah. Next episode, they're gone. Like,
that's how we should have all known.
Yeah.
Right.
But technically, I mean, he can't fly back to New York again because of production reasons. But like, he can fly to New Jersey and then cross the bridge.
Connecticut. I mean,
I like the.
He's got a motorcycle.
I like the romance.
Well, I mean, because I agree. I feel like the doctor, if he wanted to, he could go and see them again. So it's weird. I feel like watching this episode, there was like there was some suspense there, right? Like, it wasn't like they were going to get zapped back in time and live a life together. There was like this idea that they wouldn't end up in the same place or something. Am I wrong?
Yeah, like the last page kind of does that, but not enough. Like, in my opinion. And also the doctor doesn't go back to tell Brian.
Yeah.
Like, Brian put like his kids in his care, and the doctor never goes back to tell Brian, like, hey, my bad. Like, I got them stuck.
I think it was told in a very nice and romantic way. I mean, just romanticizing something. And I think that really works. But like, kind of like what Eugene said earlier, that seems to be superseding and a lot of logic of different things.
And most fans didn't see that, I'm guessing.
No, but I'm even talking about what Kelsey's talking about. The fact that, like, because River went back to do the thing with the book. Yeah. So River's probably been seeing them for years.
Well, she said she sends it to her. She didn't necessarily say she went back and saw them.
Yeah, she said send it to them. But like, I think so, like, so for me, this is how I would have written this episode. Their doctor and River are in the TARDIS after everything went down, and they're sad. They're like, wow, that is horrible. We're sad, blah, blah, blah. And then it cuts to the park with that page, the afterword. The audience sees the afterword, cross-dissolved to Amy in New York, 1935, typing the book. Rory comes up, puts his hand on her shoulder, and then pans up to Rory. Oh my gosh, it's Rory and Amy. They're together. So first you're like, Amy wrote the book. Oh my gosh. Clothes. And then, oh my gosh, Amy and Rory together. And then you see Rory holding a baby. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then you're, as an audience member, you're like, oh, they protected my companions. Like, oh, they gave my companions a happy ending. It's a little bittersweet that the doctor doesn't know. But like, that's the doctor, that just like builds into the doctor's character moving forward, is that he has this guilt over Amy and Rory and what he did.
And it would almost be like, she could even say, like, they could say, we can't tell him because he'd come and find us. And he needs to be free even more than we do. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
This will be volume 30 of your fan fiction.
Yeah.
And then he won't, and then he wouldn't.
I disagree with that because it's in the doctor's nature to just kind of sever ties with companions.
Well, that sounds almost kind of like what they did at the end of Series 9 with him and Clara, where one of them had to be erased to remove the temptation of seeking the other one out.
Right.
Yes, but she came back.
Donna was unintentional, though, because it was going to, her knowledge was going to kill her.
Right.
But dinosaurs on a spaceship, you see that the doctor is like interrupting their life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, when they're about to get divorced in Dalek Asylum, it's the doctor constantly calling. And so, you know, maybe they just want to move on with that chapter in their life. And I like Kelsey's fanfic idea of where they're just kind of like, you know what, don't tell the doctor or whatever, that way, he can move on with his and we can move on with ours. Because in all these other previous episodes, like Eugene said, it contradicts. Maybe they were just complex and just in between and didn't know what they want. And now that they're in the past, they know what they want.
Yeah.
You guys, that's great for you. Good for you. I have one issue with it for myself. But you guys, I like it, but it goes back to the witch in the wardrobe, or the doctor in the wardrobe. Sorry, where she was saying you can't do that to your friend. You can't make them think that you're dead.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Cruel. That's just wrong. And so he goes back, and that's what brings them back together. So I think for Amy and Rory to do that, that would be cruel.
I like everything about Kelsey's idea except for that.
I think it goes back to what Eugene. It need to be 2 episodes. It just needed to be 2 episodes.
Does River know she has a brother?
Adopted.
So in the Big Finish audios, she has multiple siblings.
Really?
Yeah. If you go into templeofgeek.com, we just did 5 things you didn't know about River Song.
Oh, cool.
Really great.
Another 4 things they didn't know about River Song. I gotta go there and find out.
How did the doctor get this book?
Well, he says that it was just there in the TARDIS in his coat. Because Amy says, "Where'd you get this book?" And he says, "It was in my coat. I don't know. I don't question things. It was just here."
No, I think, but he was implying, it just was in my coat, like everything is. I don't ever question when something just shows up in my coat. Like the line was inferring that, like things are always popping up in my coat.
Yeah. The pockets are bigger on the inside.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Mary Poppins pockets.
Yeah, he has all of the volumes of Melody Malone and Kelsey's fanfiction in his pockets.
Yeah, he doesn't question the, Orient Express tickets or anything. He's just like, yeah, I got tickets.
That's one thing on this one that seemed out of the doctor, him not questioning things. Why do we end up in a cemetery when we got bounced back from 1938? I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with it. I don't know.
He's like, we got lucky. I'm like, really? Yeah. That doesn't sound like the doctor to me.
Where'd you get the book? I don't know.
Nothing is a coincidence until it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And up till now, I didn't know they can transport people through space. It always was just back in time to the same location you were at. So instead of using the energy that way.
Because in Blink, the girl ended up in Scotland, I thought.
Well, I thought that's where they were.
They were in
Scotland. Oh, were they in Scotland?
Oh,
no.
The mansion, I don't think was in the Weeping Angel mansion.
The mansion was outside of London, and she wound up in Yorkshire.
That's Hull, right?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not in Hull. How can I be in Hull?
But back to that opening being set up for what we get with Rory, it's like this second viewing of this episode, I could just see all the, I guess there are devices or a signpost of what's to happen. It felt unorganic to me. Like, I'll say more about it at the end, but it just felt, that's why that's there, to serve the purpose for Rory. That's why we hear the giggling of the kids, because we're going to set up the cherubs. But things like that.
I like that because if
I know,
we didn't
I'm just
get
saying, I don't like it.
Understood.
Yeah.
I definitely get that. I'm sorry. I'm saying why I liked it was because you didn't have that emotional what's going on that Rory really had. When Amy's there, it's like you're at the point of, oh no, this has already happened to him. That's old Rory. You know it. And so you're right there in the moment I'm right there in the moment rather than me trying to figure out, well, who's the old person in the bed? What's going on? So I'm already there emotionally. And I thought the makeup was excellent.
Yes, the makeup
was that was amazing. It was him,
Yeah.
They did it really well.
Yeah, I think they did a better job on the old makeup on the random dude and Rory than they did on the doctor when he was on Trenzalore.
I don't think that was makeup on the guy in the beginning. I think that was another actor.
Yeah, that was another actor.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay,
I
I thought it was.
It looked a lot like him. It looked a lot like him.
I assumed it was makeup.
I actually thought it might have casted as dad because they look a lot like.
Yeah, they casted a dad and son for the Impossible Astronaut. Episode.
Morgan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget his name, but yeah, old and
Canton Delaware Everett the Third.
That one. They casted father and son for that one.
Yeah, but just to wrap this portion up of Frank, I think what helped me is verbalizing that. I can kind of see through the seams and this is only on a repeat viewing.
Yeah. One sad thing that occurred to me that I like is that so Rory already lived that moment, and so he knew that they would come in. So he knew he was going to see Amy again. So he was basically just holding on and waiting to die until he saw Amy. So and then he would let go. So I think when I
You've done
originally
it
watched
before.
this, I think when I originally watched this, it was one of those things like, oh, that's convenient. The day he dies, she shows up. But now I see it as he's not ready to die until he knows she's going to come in there. So.
Aww, I love that. Kind of felt like that.
And the doctor knew because he was so pleased to see her. He could tell.
We were watching that with our kids, and our kid was like, "Why is nobody listening to Amelia? She's the only one that hears that something." And he was like yelling at the TV, like, "Amy's talking." It was funny because I've seen this episode like a ton of times. As I was watching it, like when they opened the door and the weeping angel shows up, I screamed really loud, and everybody's like, "You knew that was going to happen." I was like, "Shit, I forgot. It was scary."
She did.
Doctor Who is scary.
She actually did. But yeah, I thought they were supposed to move at like quantum speeds, and she like just rolled through New York while everyone was staring at her, apparently.
Which should have been impossible.
Could you imagine someone doing like a night tour of the Statue of Liberty? Just being like, what the fuck is going on?
What about the janitors and the security guards and the doctor? Right. I'm sorry. Or the people in Jersey look across the river looking at the Statue of Liberty, the Circle Line boat. I mean, come on. You can only break one or two rules of reality, and then that's what makes it somewhat plausible. Like you can't just keep breaking rules. Then you can't break your own rule, but you can't, like Superman and Kryptonite. Like those are the hard things, in the yellow sun, those are set, but you can only do that once or twice. You can't just keep adding things, and every time it just takes me out of it, even thinking about it.
Yeah, it is a lot. I understand.
I while we were talking here, I had this image of like it could have just been a rooftop full of like gargoyles that were on the building, and then they turn in, and then they kind of look back across the river, and it's insinuated that the Queen Angel is the Statue of Liberty. Doesn't move, or maybe just goes. And like turns
that
its head
actually
a
would have
little
been
bit.
super creepy if she was out in the middle of the water.
It's the Jaws effect where you don't really see it; it's all inferred, and that would have been a million times more creepy. But I will say, to Monica's earlier point, there are these times during the show where they basically say, okay, this is too behind the sofa. We have to do something so it's sillier for kids. So it's like maybe
obviously they didn't know me as a kid, because you know what scene frightened me as a kid? In Ghostbusters, when the eggs come out of the egg carton, that haunted me for the rest of my life. Eggs coming out of an egg carton, okay? And the goop coming out of the faucet, I still think about that whenever I turn on a faucet. Like, that's all it took for me. I was a very special child.
You have no problem with the Statue of Liberty walking down the street in Ghostbusters 2.
I had no problem with that because there was a happy song playing, okay?
I have a problem with the last two words of the sentence you just said, Brian.
Ghostbusters 2? Completely agree.
Big problem.
Big problem. There is no way down from the roof, but Rory realizes that actually there is one. He has to jump. If he dies now, it creates the paradox that he can't die when he's older. But he can't get himself to jump and asks Amy to push him. Instead, she joins him. Together or not at all. They both fall off of the building, and it and the angels begin to fade away. Suddenly, the four of them wake up alive in the cemetery in 2012. They collapse the timeline and the paradox worked. Rory sees his name on the headstone, and an unseen angel touches him from behind, sending him back in time. Amy wants to use the TARDIS to rescue him, but New York is too unstable and would be destroyed. Amy will not live without him, and hopes that if the angel touches her, it will send her back to be with him, creating a fixed point in time where the Doctor cannot go. She says goodbye to her daughter and her best friend. She takes her eyes from the angel, and her name is added to the headstone with Rory's.
Before we get into more of this, I want to point out the track that is playing while they're falling is Together or Not at All, and I personally like that track. I felt it was very fitting to play against that, what was going on with the slow-mo falling.
I love that scene. I think it was beautifully done. The only thing I guess if I wanted to nitpick was that Rory asked Amy to push him. I thought that was a little messed up. That's very Wanda and Vision, kill me kind of thing.
Yeah.
If he was so sure, he could have, taken that jump on his own. But I love that whole scene. I think it was so great. I love, that Amy was willing to go with him. I love that he was willing to die like always he's just like such a hero. He's not trying to be a hero. He's just like, okay, I have to fix this, and if it costs my life, fine, and it's not that he doesn't value his life, it's that he just is always trying to do the right thing. And like Rory's just overall, he's just such a great character, in my opinion. From calling out the doctor in little things to like always doing what's typically best. He doesn't make a lot of like, moral or ethical mistakes. Like he's pretty solid as a character.
Well, the thing I love most about this episode is just that Rory comes up with the idea that saves the day.
Yeah.
It's not even the doctor, and then not only does he come up with the idea, but he's the one that carries it through.
The doctor would never come up with that idea, even if he knew that was the answer.
Yeah, adding insult to injury on Rory deciding to kill himself to create a paradox. The doctor gave zero f***s about him yeeting himself off a building because he's going, Amy, no!
Well, and then what's interesting too is like there's that like where he's like, this will work, right? And then River's like, yes, it'll work. Now River is like an archaeologist. She's from the future. She must know all of their past, how they die. And I feel like in that moment it clicked to her. This is how they get stuck in New York, because she's like at first she's not stopping them from, or she's kind of like, she's more pulling the doctor away. And then when she goes, this will work, right? And she yells and she's like, yes, it'll work. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that was at the end. But, in any case, like, I feel like maybe River knows this coming because she doesn't seem to be stopping it at any point.
Right. That's a good point.
I love the interaction with River, how supportive she is of not just her own mother, but just the fact that she wants her parents to be together and to be happy, and that she's watching the angel for her at times, and also encouraging her, yes, go find him, be with dad, basically. And I don't know, just that whole interaction between Amy and River was just really good. I really loved that. And when she's telling her to take care of the doctor and stuff. Oh.
Yeah, when she says, be a good girl. And like, and like, I know somebody mentioned that they didn't like that she told her mother, but I really love that part. She was like, yes, mother. Like, I was like, oh my God. Maybe because I'm a mom, I don't know. But I was just like, ah.
Well, what if she'd said mom? I would have liked it better. But mother just sounded weird to me. Why did you say mom?
Because that's who they are. They're not mom people.
It could just be us, mother could be more traditional over there for also.
Mum. She could have said mum.
Mum.
Yeah, mum would have been.
I really like the dichotomy with River and them, this parent, child, parent, like not that she's old enough to be their, not that the actor is old enough to be their mother, but she is sort of a mother figure to them. But so that whole, in that moment, it was such a weird but great thing for me. It's almost like, Frank, that thing that you always like when the doctor says something that has two meanings. It's like she's probably feels very parental towards them because they're these young kids that she's seen grow as people, and she's been older than them. At the same time, they are her parents. So it's just such an interesting timey-wimey thing that I love.
How old do you guys think River is? Because she goes from being like a toddler to like a bigger kid, like the way she regenerates and everything.
Yeah, she doesn't reach, yes.
So how old do you think she is? Because she goes from being Melody Malone. So like, when we see her in Let's Kill Hitler, and she goes from like kind of like this young woman to like this older, more vivacious woman, like, that I just want to know how old River is. How long did she stay in each stage?
How long was she in prison for even? She's like Baby Yoda and as a 50-year-old toddler.
Yeah. I think trying to figure out River Song's timeline will just lead to insanity.
Yeah. I really have to
refresh my memory though. Like, so when does she know that she's a Time Lord? Because in Let's Kill Hitler, she knows. Does that get wiped from her memory? I'm forgetting.
No, so she says when she regenerates, she says, the last time this happened, I ended up a toddler in New York or something like that.
Oh, so she was even someone else before that. But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the river, the Alex Kingston River, from day one, like, so when we first see her, does she know she's part Time Lord?
Yes.
Yeah. Alex Kingston's River always is known.
Yeah, because Mel knew what was going to happen.
Right. Okay.
So don't want to comment on this scene is how messed up it was the entire time. Rory was never with them. So he didn't know any of the consequences of reading something and setting it in stone. And then he's the one who sees his name on the gravestone and then calls Amy over to look at it.
Right. Look at that.
Look, this person has the same name as me.
Yeah, and then boop.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's...
Is this your first day?
And his middle name is the same name as the actor who plays me.
I like that.
It's a little too convenient. Like, I can see through the seams on this. That's one part that I don't like, despite all the good stuff we're talking about.
Well, because he goes back.
Well, since we read the headstone first, we're the ones who caused it to happen.
Yes, it's your fault.
Okay.
How dare you?
Way
audience.
back with Amy and them in the cemetery before even Rory showed up. It's like,
So
it's our fault.
the name of this episode really should be No Spoilers.
And you know what's funny is, us not watching this episode would have been us ripping the last page.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that she never says spoilers in this whole, because this whole show is based around that concept.
Yeah.
What a wasted opportunity.
I really liked it. I think
Amy's decision to go together or not at all goes back to Amy's choice. She's like, I can't live in a world without him. I don't care which one's real. And so this is, if you're right and we survive, great. If not, I'm not living without you either. So
it's great. I mean, again, like, I probably seen this episode maybe just 3 times, including the time I watched it for this. And I was so distracted by the silly things I didn't like that, like, this time when I watched it, I just got all that heartfelt stuff. I was totally swept up in the emotional content. And the thing I said about Rory just earlier, like, I was right there with it. And I was just like, yeah, the silly stuff, whatever. So it's like, it was this, I agree with you guys that liked it so much, because it is really good and enjoyable. It's almost like watching a great movie and somebody next to you just starts coughing and hacking for a few minutes, but you still really like the movie.
I'm glad you brought up Amy's choice, because I was thinking like way earlier, I didn't want to bring it up until we got to the point, was alternative title that they could have used for chapter 12 would have been Amy's choice and not Amelia's final goodbye.
Right. That would have been good. I like that.
Right?
Then he might have not had a tantrum.
No, he wouldn't have had a tantrum. That's correct.
Again, not Rory's final farewell.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't even go tell his dad. I'm sorry, I got mad. I'm so mad about that. Brian was a good dude.
And the best line in this whole episode, Eugene.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Probably not.
When Amy's going, well, how do you know you're going to come back from the dead?
Oh,
when don't I?
Yeah.
When don't I?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
I remember
it was like, okay, that was the best line. I just love that.
I remember the first time watching this when it was like first out, thinking that was just hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then the show makes fun of itself, and I like that.
Yeah.
Well, once you hit rock, come back from hitting rock bottom, you're not so scared of it anymore.
Yeah, boom is right.
And I wanted to point out from a production standpoint, we were saying earlier about how whenever it's an Angels episode, there's multiple times that people are not looking at the Angels. I was really, really happy with this scene when Rory's up on the wall trying to convince Amy to push him. I love the fact that during that entire scene, he's staring at the statue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's keeping the statue at bay. And then Amy gets up on the thing, and they completely start to look at each other, which they have to do from an emotional standpoint. I get it, but it's like, well, now the statue's got him.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Went through all that trouble to not have Rory look at the Statue of Liberty, and then you threw it all away completely.
Yeah. And hearing his whole monologue on how he's going to destroy them.
Yeah, I will say though, from mentioning it earlier, they don't, in this particular episode, they don't talk about the lightning speed of the Angels. So, we are inferring that from our own, geek bank. But I don't devalue it. But if we're just looking at this episode, you can ascertain that they're kind of looking in that direction. I don't like it. Whatever.
It is kind of hard not to see a huge statue out of the corner of your eye.
But also, even if it's not lightning speed, just doing this doesn't take that much time.
No, they definitely opted for emotional content over logic, which
the other
you
the other thing I think is pretty weird is they do talk about how the angels kill you by sending you back in time and feed off of your life energy. They do mention that, and no one, Amy or River wouldn't, but it's like, well, then how come last time they were just snapping people's necks?
Those were crazy angels, though. They were like vindictive.
Yeah, because they said on over the mic, they was like, because it's fun or something like that.
Yeah, but that's I mean, this. Well, okay.
Well, they
did. Those were like angry angels.
Way.
Angel Bob.
Yeah, didn't they say they were driven mad because they were trapped there? Was that a thing? Am I making that up?
It was something to do with the cracks in the universe, I think.
Well, crack is whack, and it will make people.
Yeah.
Crack kills. Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna go with the crack in the universe. Okay, that works.
Oh, so should we call if we're making those references when Amy did that, should we call it angel dust?
Heyo.
There's that in Blink, like they zap you back in time, but they're not really like cruel to you. They just, right. I mean, it's cool to send somebody back in time, but they didn't like hurt you or they just displaced you somewhere. They didn't drop you in a lake or something.
Yeah, Sally's friend probably had a better life in Yorkshire than she did would have. Wherever they are.
Yeah. Because everybody thought she was 2 years younger than she really was.
That's right.
River and the doctor leave, and River tells him once again to not travel alone. In years to come, when she writes her book, River has Amy write an afterword to the doctor. He reads the last page where Amy tells him that they lived well and were happy. She also tells him not to travel alone and asks him to visit her when she waited for him on their first meeting and tell her the story of Amelia Pond. So I have a problem with that because it changes Amy completely.
Continuity, yeah.
Yes.
Frank, go.
Well,
you made it. You totally turned me around on it last night.
He didn't start his adventures with her. He just visited her in the morning and saying, you have to be patient. I'll be back. And we're going to be with whales in space. And we're going to do all this stuff basically. And then she still has to wait for him for 12 years. He keeps thinking it's going to be just a little bit. Like, I'll wait for you a day, a week, a year. And then, so everything kind of still happens the same way. She still has to go through therapy because she's like still believing in this. But he's not telling her everything, just saying, I'll be right back, I'll be back, but you just have to be patient.
And in the Crack in the Wall episode, he goes to her while she's sleeping and he's telling her a story. I mean, I know that the timelines don't match up at that point, but he has done that before, so maybe he goes to her in her sleep again and is like whispering these stories that like imprint on her or something.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm okay with that one more than I am with this one because there's just something about the smile she gives that it takes away that edge of who Amy was in season 5.
I totally agree because I was just trying to rationalize it for myself. But
yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I hated this episode so much. I hated that ending, and the way Frank describes it is, yeah, she's really happy because she hears the TARDIS again, and she's like, "Oh, great, now it's going to start." But he just comes up and says, "I'll be back. Here's what we're going to do. See ya." So by the next day, she's like, "I'm crazy."
No, I get that.
So
I thought her at the end was just her from that first episode, just kind of up there, and she smiles because she's dreaming of going off with, on these adventures. I didn't think it was like she had already talked to the doctor. I think it was just like a flashback to a young Amelia dreaming of like the man in the box.
Granted, we are assuming that he did actually go back and talk to her. I mean, he could have just said, I'm not doing that.
He's like, that would screw with the timeline.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, there you go.
He's like, I'm going to go pick up Clara.
I didn't see it as story at all. I just saw it as like, that's creepy Moffat. Like, why? Like, I don't know.
That's what
Does she age at all? That girl doesn't seem to age, or maybe I'm just not seeing the different episodes lined up next to each other.
That wasn't. I think that was still her. Yeah.
Yes, that's
that was stock footage.
Oh, was it?
That they just
previous footage from the other show.
Yeah.
Wow, how great it must be to get paid for something that you already did.
I'm going to go through a little bit of stuff I don't like, and then I'll go through stuff I do like. So you may disagree with this. But we are told that the Doctor should not travel alone. I get that from David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, with Runaway Bride and Partners in Crime. With the 11th and Matt Smith, we're constantly told he shouldn't travel alone, but we don't really see why he shouldn't. We're just told. Because every time he's traveling alone, it's always funny and comical because he gets married to Marilyn Monroe by accident. He goes into the 17th century and he's hiding behind somebody's dress while the husband comes in and maybe they're having something there. He's imprisoned and he has a long beard in The Impossible Astronaut, but that's all part of his plan. So these things where he's traveling alone aren't necessarily bad. So I don't see 10's consequences in 11.
Well, there's a point where Amelia tells can't remember what episode it is, but she tells 11, "We are better than that. We do better." And like, I don't remember. I think
the gunfighter.
Maybe. I'm sorry.
It's the gunfighter episode. The
Mercy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And she's like, "We're better than this. We can do better." And they start to kind of like hint at the Doctor shouldn't be alone because his Earth companions are the ones that ground him with the humanity and kind of like, help keep a more compass. Like you saw it in, the fires of Pompeii with Donna and Ken. But you also see that Clara does that to 11 as well. But I think also speaking from River's point of view, she knows she's from his future. So she's looked him up. She's studied the Doctor. She's searched for him. So I'm sure there's a lot that she knows that she's like, just don't be alone. You need somebody because you're dangerous on your own.
I'm gonna throw something in there that I'm not sure ever like most people think about or they choose to ignore because 11th Doctor is just so fun and childish and campy and like, oh, look at me, I'm doing this silly dance and blah blah blah. But he is so vindictive and manipulative, and he will do anything to get his way. Rory even like starts yelling at him, "You're turning me into you." Like he
becomes very dangerous to people.
Yeah, he seeds that. Like as fun as he is, those consequences that we see like 10 build up to, where like it's like 10, like other Doctors, it's almost like they get to a boiling point where they do it, but the 11th Doctor continuously just manipulates people the entire time that we don't get to that boiling point because it's always happening.
Right, and even River says...
it's just being masked behind this like fun and positive attitude that he puts out and everyone thinks it's okay.
But yeah, River even says, rule number 1, the Doctor lies. So he's obviously like a liar.
Yeah, right. And that's only for I hate when people bring it up later because that's only for the 11th Doctor. I don't see that mainly with any other Doctor.
That was one of the things that I didn't like about Matt Smith in the beginning, because he was another step that he was always yelling at people. He was always very angry.
Oh, he literally called an army of people who died for him.
Yeah, I love Dark Side. Dark Side is one of my favorite things about him. I usually like my go-to trope is asshole with a heart of gold, but I think Matt Smith's Doctor character is a little more of a heart of gold with a bit of asshole. And I like it personally. I totally understand why people would not like it. Like Brian, I get that 1,000%. I think that's just my weird taste.
Yeah, and
and it's a taste thing too.
I like that he's flawed and immature.
And I think I'm coming from what we talked about earlier in this episode and what we've talked about from earlier episodes in this podcast is that I preferred the way Russell did it as opposed to how Moffat kind of seeds it in a different way. That's just my preference, is the seeding of how Russell Davis did it.
And you know what's interesting is so the things that I love about Matt Smith as the Doctor was how campy he was and how fun and like this and that. But I understood that he was like also this dark kind of like, he had a dark past and he has these dark moments. But 13, for example, is much more of what Matt Smith was trying to be. Or not Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor was trying to be. She's so full of light, so kind of like much kinder, much more campy, and it's more genuine, as if where like the 11th Doctor is kind of like masking and acting that way,
Yeah, she rarely gets angry.
And she rarely gets angry. And I think that's what I needed from my doctor. So like I love 13 because I had gotten a little bit burned out of just like the dark of the doctor and just kind of like going through the same things and never like growing, always just having the same struggles and drama. I'm like, come on, man, you're 2,000 years old. You haven't learned anything. So when we get to 13 and she says, you know, I really feel like she takes like 12, you know, be kind, you know, love, what is it? Run fast.
Don't like pears.
Don't like pears, yeah. So I think she takes 12 like last speeches, like be kind to everybody and you know, have fun and I love that. And I think that's why I loved Matt Smith's character so much, because there was such a lightheartedness that I needed that, because 10 was a lot darker. 9 was definitely like, you know, he was fun, obviously, but he's a lot darker and more serious, you know?
Yeah, with 9, again, it's going back to the way Russell did things. I enjoy 9's darkness because of this, just the way it was given, I guess, the packaging it was given.
Well, and also his circumstances.
And the only real time that we saw the Doctor on his own during this run was closing time, but he's not really alone because he's with Craig. So the episode is still sort of lighthearted and fun. I wish there was a Runaway Bride or, like Brian mentioned, Waters of Mars episode for the 11th.
Well, there's the Widow,
the wardrobe one.
Yeah, they have that one. And then they also have the one where he's like, you know, the Christmas one. I love that one, the shark one.
Oh yeah, the Christmas story is probably one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, really, and he's on his own.
But maybe I just had this thought, Eugene. Maybe, you know, usually it's kind of like the Doctor who dumps his companions. And in this case, they're dumping him. You know, obviously that's generalization, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when she says don't travel alone, it's has less to do with what she's seen of him traveling alone and more to do with like, we don't want you to be sad that we're leaving you. Like find your next Amy, like
move on, but don't be codependent. I'm not going to be with you all the time.
Exactly. I mean, it could be something more like that.
I get that.
That actually does lead to one of my favorite moments in the whole episode, where she says, don't travel alone. And he says, you could travel with me. And I love that she just gives him a look and says, anytime, anywhere. And then says, but not all the time.
Only one psychopath for TARDIS.
Yeah.
It
would just be too much. That. And I love that because to me, it means that they had so many more adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Doctor deserves that.
And Eugene, just to try and get another point of view, the Doctor should not travel alone, not just this 11th incarnation.
Yes.
Nate,
for sure.
Was very right about the 11 being so manipulative, like in The Girl Who Waited, and how he used everybody and with Rory to get his outcome, that he wanted to have the younger Amy come back, not the older Amy. And all the things we had talked about that we didn't think were Doctor-ish shows that he has that streak still in him, no matter what.
Even little things, like when he was with Clara in, I think it was Center of the TARDIS. He's like, I'm going to plug you into the Neuralink. She's like, is it going to hurt? No. Ow, I lied.
Right.
I guess I'm just coming from, again, like the package that I could see why the Doctor shouldn't travel alone with 10, where I didn't feel that way with 11 as much as I wanted to.
And 12, look what happens with 12. The moment he gets to be alone, he does something stupid and winds up being trapped for 4 billion years in an episode that feels like it's 4 billion years long.
I love that episode.
Still one of the greatest episodes.
Oh, you gotta come back for that one.
It's so decisive.
Come back.
It's so decisive. You,
come back.
You either love
I
it or
will
you hate
be
it.
here for all 4 billion seconds.
Okay.
And Albert and I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Frank and I will take you on because we despise that episode.
All right, Nate, I'm on your team. I'm just going on visceral reaction. I had a visceral reaction when I watched it, and that left an imprint. I don't care about what people say or what I heard. I just know what I felt.
It's so funny because every time I've ever talked to anybody about that episode, it's so divisive. People either love it or they hate it. There's like no in between. But I'm completely indifferent to it. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. All right. It's fine.
Be the moderator.
I feel like I could be the moderator. But like I'm neutral. Like I don't feel either way towards it. But if I bring it up, people either just, react like you, Brian, or react like Nate. Like they either like it's so divisive. I don't know. It's so funny.
Polarizing.
I'm sorry, but I was triggered.
I kind of want that last section. Send me the video for that last section. I want to post that last section. I love this conversation. This is fun.
So there's a little short after this that was written by Chibnall, but it wasn't filmed, but they did animate it, or animated storyboards were cut to this video and some music. Hold on, let me find that because I could be mixing my stuff up. I just assumed it was
a children in need thing, but they did it for some special. Here, let's give this bonus to the fans.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I always just assumed that they did it like later on.
Because they couldn't get Brian. They couldn't get
him.
It was originally intended to be a live-action DVD extra, but the unavailability of actor Mark Williams meant it could not be filmed, so it was never going to be in the episode.
What was he doing? Harry Potter 75?
Probably. This was a webcast, and Arthur Darvill is voicing most of it because they could not get Mark Williams, who plays his dad, which this mainly is about, where Brian Williams is watching over Amy and Rory's house, and then he receives somebody at his door who gives him a letter from Rory in the past, and he lets his dad know that he's okay, that he and Amy have adopted and are living their lives out. And it turns out that this guy that's delivering the letter to Brian is his grandson. So it's nice. I like it. It's a shame they couldn't film it. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on it.
I like it a lot, but I'm glad that it is physically not in the episode.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I don't know if I would have liked if it was filmed or not, because I do really enjoy the music and the voiceover from Rory. And I don't know if having it filmed would have taken away from that, having like the actual actors talking and communicating with each other rather than just... I don't know. I'm wondering if it ended up being more emotional because of the way it was done.
Yeah, because we could put our own emotions onto non-actor faces.
Yeah, and we didn't have to worry about being introduced to this new character who's an adult son of Rory and Amy, who's in a live action thing is like, oh, he's just standing there while Brian reads the note. I mean, not that we would have seen him, but still, it's like, what's the guy doing? And this in storyboards, you don't think that.
I kind of wish it was filmed, because I think they could have intercut that in with the doctor, with Amy telling the doctor, maybe Amy who wrote the note. I know that would have been the same, but I think it could have been that's covering up what Monica was saying. Is like, no, he didn't tell the dad. So we could have seen it at that point. And I think I would have liked that a little bit better than the ending that we had.
And Rory deserved his own goodbye.
Yeah.
I would have preferred time. You have a certain amount of time. I would have rather them film this scene with Brian than had the opening.
I agree too.
I'm not there yet.
I still feel that I'm glad it's not tied into the episode, but had they not had that cold opening and they had this at the end and I wouldn't know any better, I would have liked that.
Yeah.
But since I do know better, I like that it's extra.
I can't say that it would have necessarily fit in the episode. I don't know if it'd be seamless or not. I still am on the edge of whether it should have been filmed, because if they did get like his father to do it, he wouldn't just be silent the whole time. Like there would be dialogue between the two. And I almost like I was saying before, like I think that might have taken away from like just the emotion that the music is dragging you through while everything's happening. And then just hearing Rory's voice just somberly speaking to his father, and I don't know.
And we would have been focused on his acting. Yeah. How does he do in silence, reading a piece of paper? Can he convey it? So we would all be watching the emotions of the actor.
Yeah. Where here we get to focus on his voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I really like the
Brian.
No,
yeah. Brian's reading the letter.
Yeah, I got you. And I switched up focusing on Rory's voice.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like the part where he talks about, Anthony will have the photo albums. And I'm still wish I would have had a photo shoot of Rory and Amy in vintage clothing with their kids. Like it kills me that we don't have like a vintage, like Rory and Amy, like whole outfit photo shoot thing through the decades as they're like raising their children in America.
And they probably have a picture of them flipping off the Statue of Liberty.
And a picture of the trowel.
Right. Because you wanted to end on Amy and the doctor. So where does this go? If you intercut it, does it break it up? Does it lessen both of them? If you put it before, does then the Amy thing seem like it's dragging on too long? If you put it after, that's like Return of the King, where there's like a million endings. So I mean,
if I had my choice, I would be interspersed. It would be have Amy talking to the doctor and him and Rory talking to his father, kind of back and forth, filling out one story of what they were saying.
In theory, it would have been nice to have it a little bit like more upfront and well known in canon and stuff like that, because it is answering one of those things. Every episode that has an ending in it, we're always like, well, what about this? Well, what if they didn't tell that person that? So it's really nice.
Interesting you say that. I take anything that they put out, even these mini webisodes, as canon, because it is official. Yeah
But we are also people who know that stuff. Like there are casual viewers who never even know about any of that.
Fair.
Right.
That I think there's so much rich stuff out there. If more people knew about it, especially Americans, it would be a bigger, it is a big show. It would make the show even more of a staple.
Yeah. And I remember this is a different webisode, being upset about the end of River Song, because I thought that the one where I forgot the name of it.
It's the name of the doctor.
No, but there's a webisode where she's trying to get ready, and they're supposed to go to like the singing towers.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really our sum up on River, and I was real upset about that. So I'm glad they went back around with 12 on that one.
I want to say it's like Last Night or something like that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's first night, last night, so that's last night. Yeah.
So speaking of other webisodes or ancillary materials, there are Pond Life, and Frank mentioned that as far as I think it was Asylum of the Daleks. But on the DVD, these Pond Life shorts or webcasts are associated with this disc with The Angels Take Manhattan, but they do correlate with other episodes, but there are some that specifically reference stuff that happens in here, like when the doctor, at the very end, when the doctor is cleaning up the TARDIS in the graveyard, and River says, does that light bulb need changing? In one of the Pond Life episodes, the doctor does change that light bulb.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then there's one where the doctor comes in while they're sleeping and he just interrupts their life, and he does something very similar to the ending where he's like, this hasn't happened yet, oops, sorry, I'll go back. But he also leaves them an ood.
Right, I love that.
Yeah.
An ood in the loo.
Yeah, ood in the loo, because Rory wakes up, opens the door to the bathroom, the loo, and he immediately closes it. Amy comes in, he's like, what? He's like, don't go in there. And then she does, and he's just sitting on the toilet. It's like, can I be of assistance? And it goes on for another episode where he's basically their butler. He's doing the windows, cooking them breakfast, getting them ready for work, and it's kind of fun.
I love that.
If I remember correctly, do all the webisodes lead into their because it's been a while since I've watched them. Do they all lead into their
Asylum of the
like
Daleks.
being unhappy?
Yeah.
Yes. So at the end, the last episode, it's just them yelling as Rory's walking out of their house, but you don't hear the dialogue.
Okay.
And then there's always the doctor leaving like messages on their phone or whatever.
Yes. And I think that one, he erases his message at one point.
Yeah.
So those are all you can play all of them in order, I guess, of their release date on the special features of this disc that includes The Angels Take Manhattan, which is odd because I thought personally I would have preferred if they took the ones that tied in with Asylum of the Daleks and put it on that disc.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
right.
I don't know, maybe it's because it's like just kind of more content for Amy and Rory since that's their last one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they felt it was weird splitting them up. I don't know.
I don't know either. They could have done something.
And you can watch them all on YouTube, I think. I think they're all on YouTube as well.
On this DVD, they also did a little edited, cut-down version of their Comic-Con panel in 2012. Monica and Nate, were you there?
No, we didn't go to 2012.
Okay. So Brian and Frank, we were there, if you remember.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, so this is it was moderated by Chris Hardwick, and it had Stephen Moffat, Matt Smith, Karen Gillan, Arthur Darvill, and Caroline Skinner, I believe, was the producer at the time. I'll just try to sum it up without going into too much detail. They're talking about this episode, and this is the farewell of the Ponds. Then they ask Arthur and Karen, what are you doing now that you're off Doctor Who? And what's great, and I remember this very clearly, is that they update the audience as the other person. Arthur is doing a Scottish accent, and he's like, I'm going to be in Oculus, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then when Karen does Arthur, she does that, oh, I'm going to be in this, and it's just great. I love that they did each other's voices.
They had such a great dynamic.
Yeah.
Such a great chemistry between them all.
Yeah, it was nice to see them at that panel.
Awesome.
Thinking you Frank and Brian, you don't remember any of that panel.
No, I do.
No,
I remember
honestly.
Waiting in line forever outside to get in, and
Yeah.
also moving up. Oh, there's some spots. Move up the
Yes.
next person. There's some
Oh,
spots. Move
the
up
chair game.
the old
Yeah,
way of doing
yeah.
it.
But not of
And
the content.
I honestly,
Well, I remember some of it, but I don't remember that part for some reason.
I can't get past when Comic-Con destroyed me. So
Through the cast, we have Alex Kingston returning as River Song, and we have Michael McShane plays Grail. He was Dr. Swanson in Office Space. He's the hypnotist that causes Ron. His name is Ron
Peter?
Livingston. Peter, that's it, Peter. To
Was
get
he
that.
was he the big mob guy in the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, he was also a big staple actor, a comedian on the British Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was a regular on that.
And then he was Tuck and Roll in A Bug's Life.
Oh, no way.
And I remember him most as Friar Tuck in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Me too.
Roberto Davidi plays Sam Gardner, the younger Sam Gardner. He was born in Queens, New York, and was on HBO's Rome. He's done a lot of TV and video games. Burnell Tucker plays the older Gardner. He spent a lot of roles with headsets. He's uncredited on a lot of things. He's Mandrake's aide in Doctor Strangelove. He's in The Dirty Dozen, You Only Live Twice. He's in 2001: A Space Odyssey, again wearing a headset. And he's Del Gorin in Star Wars. He's the one with on the command center on Yavin. He's also a Secret Service man in The Omen, the original Omen. He's an agent as well in Superman. He's a policeman in The Shining. He's an airline co-pilot in Flash Gordon in Life Force. And he's a rebel officer in Empire Strikes Back. So he plays a lot of these supporting roles. Bentley Kalu plays the Hood. He's the guy that throws Rory into the basement. He plays a lot of soldiers on set. He was in Red 2, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Age of Tomorrow. Ozzy Yu plays the Chinese foreman, where the doctor goes and gets the vase, I guess inscribed with the words that he needs. He's played a Buddhist monk in Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and he was an Chinese oil exec in the movie Syriana. Clem So plays the Chinese artisan that's actually doing the work. He's uncredited in a lot of things that he's been in, like Broadchurch, 47 Ronin, Guardians of the Galaxy, Skyfall, Spectre, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Sherlock, Doctor Strange. He's just been in a lot of things, but the things we've seen him in, he's the Mongolian warlord in The Asylum of the Daleks, and he plays another Mongolian warlord in the 4-hour Schneider cut of Justice League. And we will see him again in a future Doctor Who episode. Caitlin Blackwood plays Amelia Pond. Louise Bowen plays one of the Weeping Angels. She's played a Weeping Angel in Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. She was a Silurian in A Good Man Goes to War. She was a female diner in Let's Kill Hitler. She was a peg doll in Night Terrors. She was a handbot in The Girl Who Waited. She was the Weeping Angel in The God Complex, and she will be playing a Weeping Angel one more time. Sarah Louise Madison plays the other Weeping Angel. She was also a Weeping Angel in Flesh and Stone this episode, and she will be playing Weeping Angel again. All right, The Angels Take Manhattan. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I would say that this is definitely for
like a seasoned viewer, somebody who's, well versed in Who lore, or at least in this season, because there's not a lot of explaining about time travel, the TARDIS, why it went back in time and space. There's not a lot of explaining the Doctor's relationship with the Weeping Angels. He just knows they're the Weeping Angels. I think if it's somebody brand new watching it, they're just like, wait, what happened? Oh, now he's dead, and they wouldn't feel the emotional being torn about, the pawns leaving, or the whole, River calling Amelia mother wouldn't make sense to like a casual viewer or somebody who's never seen the show. Fan.
Yeah, probably not casual. Fan could have several different interpretations, because there are people who like only watch 10 or only watch 11 and so forth. If you've at least watched, I don't even know how to categorize this because of that. Definitely would not recommend this for a new viewer. Showing this to a new viewer would just be a total waste of time and an insult to Amy and Rory. Because you have no connection to Amy and Rory. You have no idea who the hell River is. You don't know what the Weeping Angels are. You don't know who the Doctor is. You don't know anything about the show. It would just be a complete insult to all the characters involved to introduce a new viewer in this episode. Casual, I think that it could work. A fan, definitely, specifically if you're like a casual fan, I guess, of the 11th Doctor. But yeah, I would never introduce someone to the series with this episode. Depending on how casual they are and how frequent or infrequent they watch it, it's not going to be enough. So I'm going to say at minimum fan.
I say fan. I wouldn't say diehard, because to me, it's like the question is, who is this episode good for? And I think a diehard fan almost likes everything, even if they don't think something's good. I don't think it's. I think, you know what though? I'm kind of going back on that. I'm so used to hating this episode, and now I don't hate. And now I don't hate it anymore. Actually, I'm going to say diehard. I think this is my first diehard, because I think, except for the things that I keep repeating myself about, this is a really good episode. And I think you have to really be into the show to get past that stuff. Die hard.
Going into before watching it for this podcast, I probably would have said Die Hard, because I remember hating this episode, but I think I hated it because it was a shock to my system when Amy and Rory left. And now going into watching it, I knew this was their last episode, so I was able to enjoy what this episode had to offer, knowing that, yeah, for some reason I don't know why, but I really enjoyed it this time. So I'm gonna recommend it for a fan, because I like episodes that I used to not like, and then I watch it again for our podcast and I like it. So I put those type of episodes into the fan category. For any fans that are out there that didn't like this episode, I say give it another rewatch. You might enjoy it this time.
I'm gonna waffle and go back. Yeah. Oh. I agree, because I don't consider myself a diehard, and I really enjoyed it this time. So yeah, fan.
Backpedaling.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm putting in Die Hard because of what Nate had said, that there's so much history that you should know about this. And if you are casual and you may not have seen a lot of the episodes for this Doctor and Amy and Rory, you may have seen some of the other Doctor Who episodes. When I first saw it, I did not like it, and I already was a fan of Doctor Who, and I couldn't get past the Statue of Liberty. Then I watched it again, and now I like the Statue of Liberty parts because it's part of the whole, and I'm seeing so much more in this. And for me, I had to be a diehard to go back and watch something I did not like without anybody else prompting me for it. Prompting for this, to keep going back and going, what is it that I'm missing? So for me, I think it's best for a diehard who will go through that process and really get to see some of the greatness that is in this episode. So diehard.
So I'm going to go with fan, because I can't go with Die Hard, because this is the last episode of Amy and Rory. And I feel like that's sort of a tent pole. And even though this is definitely not for beginners, because nothing is explained and we dive right in and you need to know the history to appreciate it. And even if you maybe do not necessarily like this episode, I still think that because it is their final appearance, I got to put it in fan, not Die Hard.
If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said Die Hard hands down. If you'd asked me last night, I would have said casual. If you asked me now, I would say fan. But now listening to everybody and their recommendations, it really isn't how I like this episode. It's what I think someone else would like. So I'm going to say casual. You know who River Song is. You know that River's history is crazy. And you know who Amy and Rory are. I think that would be enough. So casual.
I mean, I think I agree with most of what everyone has said so far. I particularly don't like all the multiple endings of this episode, but that's not neither here nor there. I think I will go with fan because my tendency is also kind of Die Hard, but it is such a good River episode that I don't think I want to say only Die Hard would get anything enjoyable out of this. I think most fans would, and I think we've kind of shown that tonight by most of us changing our minds on this episode after coming back and revisiting it. So I'll stick with fan.
For me, I felt like a lot of this stuff is on the nose, like the Sting song in the beginning, and it kind of sets up for everything later. And I know Moffat is able and is capable of setting up things more organically and naturally in ways that I can't see through the seams of things. And the perfect example is Blink. So I know it's in him. So it's like it's almost harder for me because I know he can do it. Like the whole time can be written. And then now you go, except when it's red, when it's set in stone. I don't like changing things that we've kind of established with like the weeping angels. Now the Statue of Liberty is a weeping angel, even though it's not made of stone. There are things like that my logic brain sort of takes over. But I was able to enjoy this episode watching it over this week. Because I am a fan, I'm able to forgive and kind of check my logic at the door and go with the emotional character stuff that is very strong in this episode for a farewell to two of our companions. So for that, I'm gonna have to put it into a fan because I'm a fan that is able to enjoy this.
I just think that everybody has such great points that they've made on who should watch this and why and who would enjoy it and who wouldn't. But you guys make such great points. It's so enjoyable to talk to you guys.
Well said.
I'm gonna stick with fan just because Rory said this episode gets better the more you watch it, and the more of a fan you are, the more you're gonna rewatch stuff. But I do think that there's a lot here for people who are not diehards necessarily.
I feel like this episode could turn you into a diehard.
Yeah, I mean. Well, I've said it many times. I end up liking a lot of these shows the more I watch them. So it's like it kind of just shows you this. There's a lot of layers in this series, and to go back and watch more, it's like watching a new episode each time.
Yeah,
Josh, I want to know who would call you a fan and who would call you a diehard. How they see you. It's like you watch this more than once. You're a diehard.
Yeah, most people consider anyone on a Doctor Who podcast to be a diehard.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, if you have a podcast.
I don't think of myself as a diehard anymore. I used to be, but I feel like I've calmed down.
Yeah.
But yeah, outsiders would not see it that way.
Right.
I think I've been saying that long enough. I think you're right. I think I'm starting to turn into a diehard, considering how much I think about the subtext and things in the past and stuff. It took a while.
Right.
Through this recording of this episode and this discussion, I was trying to figure out a statue joke, but it's not very good, so I guess it's a bust.
Stumped you.
Wow.
If you don't put that trombone in there, I definitely will.
You have to be a diehard of Eugene's humor.
I don't know. I thought that was one of his better jokes.
The setup was good.
It usually comes up during the episode before the end, so I was like, how come I'm not coming up with anything? Anyway.
Well done.
Thanks to Monica and Nate for coming along. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
You can find me, Monica, on templeofgeek.com. That is our website. We're a group of about 20 different geeks who volunteer our time to write about our passions in fandom. We are at templeofgeek.com on TikTok, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook. And then me personally, you can find me at This Dorky Nerd on Twitter or Instagram.
I'm part of Temple of Geek as well, so you can go to templeofgeek.com. There are, if you contact us things, you could email individual people of us 20 some odd people who work on the website and write articles, and we are, I'm gonna gladly say, international, because we have some people who are in other countries that participate in our website as well. Myself, I mainly just pay attention to Instagram because I just can't do multiple things like that as far as social media. Just known as Doc in the Box. I have underscores in the name. If you look it up without the underscores, I'm sure I'll bring it up. If not, oh, it was nice talking to you.
So that wraps up the Angels Take Manhattan. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page. Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew Podcast.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Wow.
That's such a cute sign-off. I really like that.
Thank you.
Is that always your sign-off?
Yes.
That's really good.
Well, we added
You
the
got
stay
that
safe.
really early.
Mm-hmm.
First episode, right? You've always said that, Eugene.
Yeah.
Second
I want to say
episode.
around 3 or 4.
Oh.
Yeah, second recording. I was like, I need a sign off, and
That's awesome. I like it.
thank you. But anyway, it's a long recording. Thanks for sticking this out, guys.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry about
Monica,
my
but thank you for
phone.
being here.
Oh,
It was
thank you.
great to have
Yeah.
you guys here.
All right.
Okay.
Brian?
Okay, fine. I'll stop researching.
Okay.
I'm
Nick.
going to step away
Yes.
really quick. You guys go on without me. It's been a few hours and I got to check on my kids.
Yes, good.
But
Make sure
go
they're
on
still
without me.
Okay.
I'll be right back. But go on.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay.
jump in whenever.